Takumi is unexpectedly summoned to another world, finding himself standing before the goddess Nolan. However, the first thing she does is apologize sincerely, explaining that it was all a huge mistake. When the summoning spell is cast, it randomly selects individuals from Earth to become heroes in the new world. Takumi's life had been going well, and he was never meant to be summoned, but an error during the spell dragged him here along with the others. The mistake is blamed on the Holy Sidonia Empire, who recklessly activated the forbidden summoning spell. Because of this, Takumi was not sent to Sidonia like the other heroes, but instead to Nolan. Takumi asks Nolan if she can send him back to Earth, given that he was brought here by mistake. Unfortunately, Nolan explains that she cannot. Out of frustration over Sidonia's actions, Nolan had erased the summoning spell from the world's magic laws, making it impossible for anyone to move between worlds anymore. Worse yet, Takumi's original body had perished in the process, leaving him as a disembodied spirit. Panicking at the realization that he's a ghost, Takumi is reassured by Nolan that she has a plan. While she can't send him back, she can give him a new body and allow him to become a citizen of this world. As an apology, Nolan also offers him her blessing to make his new life easier. Takumi, with little choice, agrees to be reborn in this world, which pleases Nolan. She then instructs him to open his status screen to review his new life. Takumi is surprised to find that Nolan has given him a 17-year-old body, even though he's actually 40 years old. Nolan brushes off his concerns about the minor details and urges him to choose a job class. Takumi, not wanting to fight, opts for a production-based job rather than a combat class. Nolan then implants the job into his soul, along with several other beneficial blessings. She sends him on his way, forgetting to provide him with any tutorials. Takumi crashes into a forest upon his rebirth, and after picking himself up, checks his reflection in a nearby river. He's now a completely different person, with no memory of his old body. Inside the bag Nolan left for him, Takumi finds food rations and money, ensuring that he won't starve. His status screen reveals that Nolan has equipped him with many useful skills, including elemental magic. Curious, Takumi tests out his new powers by forming a water ball in his hand. He quickly learns that all the elements work in the same way, and he can control them with ease. Now that he understands his magic, Takumi decides to head to the nearest village. On his way, Takumi stumbles across a stick lying in the path. Using his appraisal skill, he identifies it as Trent wood, a material useful for crafting magic staves and spears. Deciding to try out his crafting abilities, he uses his skills to make a spear. He then spends the next hour gathering useful plants nearby, filling his item box with the plants when he realizes they won't fit in his bag. Suddenly, a young girl runs toward him, calling for help. She explains that a monster is chasing her, and Takumi soon sees a massive horned rabbit charging toward them. In a panic, Takumi attempts to defend himself, but in an accidental twist of fate, he ends up stabbing the rabbit in the head, killing it instantly. Surprised by his victory, Takumi realizes it was due to luck, not skill. As a result of the encounter, Takumi gains the job title of warrior, a class he didn't want. After ensuring the girl Molly is unharmed, Takumi learns she was out gathering herbs where she wandered too far from the village. Takumi, feeling it would be wasteful to leave it behind, stashes the rabbit in his item box. Realizing too late that he revealed his ability, he decides there's no turning back. As they approach the village, the other summoned heroes are arriving at Sidonia. Confused and disoriented, they are introduced to Empress Elizabeth, who tells them they have been summoned to save the world. However, one of the heroes, Akana, feels instinctively that Elizabeth cannot be trusted, as her gut tells her the Empress is deceptive. Meanwhile, Takumi and Molly arrive at the village where her parents, Banga and Martha, express gratitude for Takumi's help. Takumi asks if he can stay in the village for a while, as he has nowhere else to go. The couple welcomes him but explains that there is no inn in the village. However, they suggest building him a house, and soon all the villagers gather to start construction. Takumi uses his earth magic to flatten the ground, but using such a large-scale spell drains his mana. The villagers are amazed at his power, and the next morning his house is completed, thanks to his skills in carpentry, blacksmithing, and sewing. Takumi then decides to practice alchemy using ores he gathered to extract metal. He successfully turns iron ore into usable material, but finds that the process consumes a lot of mana, leading him to nearly pass out. He's saved by Martha and Banga, who give him a recovery potion. Despite their warnings, Takumi continues to experiment with his alchemy skills, eventually making useful tools and weapons. Later, Takumi asks Banga for some basic potions to use as templates for his own creations. After making his own potions with herbs he collected, he compares them to Banga's potions. Takumi's version appears more magical, but unsure of its effects, he tests it by building poison tolerance, consuming the potion until he nearly dies, then healing himself. One day, Takumi encounters a massive boar and a poison spire. The boar charges at him, and despite his attempts to defend himself with magic and a spear, nothing works. Just as he's about to be overrun, the spider intervenes, attacking the boar. Takumi, seeing the opportunity, uses alchemy to break down the boar's head, defeating it. The spider is injured, but Takumi heals it, and it ends up becoming his pet, which he names Maple. Returning to the village, Takumi shows off the giant boar and his new pet spider. The villagers are amazed, especially by the fact that he managed to tame such a dangerous creature. Takumi suggests they share the boar meat since it's too much for him to eat alone, and a feast is held in his honor. Banga brings him the valuable leftovers, which can be sold for money in the nearest city, Bolton. Takumi decides that his next destination will be Bolton. Meanwhile, Nolan is quietly pleased to see Takumi evolving, but her assistant questions her true intentions. After all, she gave Takumi a special body, her blessings, and, most importantly, sent him 1 year into the past, before the Sidonia Empire activated its spell. Yet Nolan simply notes that there wasn't any specific reason. The next morning, Takumi wakes up to find himself trapped in a web. He tells Maple, the spider girl, to apologize, but she says she's lonely because he's always busy with work. Feeling guilty, Takumi decides to take a break and spend some time playing with her. However, they're interrupted by Martha, who's stunned by the sight. He quickly reassures her that Maple wasn't trying to eat him, but Martha is more interested in the spider silk. We learn that spider silk is incredibly rare and is typically used to make clothes for nobles. Martha needs Maple to spin a more elastic version of the silk, and although Takumi doubts she'll cooperate, Maple surprises them by doing exactly what Martha asked. Takumi reminds Maple of their promise to play together, but she declines, saying she's now busy, so he heads off to complete his own tasks. It's been a month since he arrived in the village, and although he's grown close to everyone, he knows it's time to move to a bigger city to pursue alchemy. But he's unsure how to break the news to everyone who has been so kind to him. Boone presents Takumi with a new set of armor and even offers to fix his shoes, joking that they'll help him kick harder. Takumi laughs, reminding them he's just an alchemist. Bonga arrives as well, and Boone tells Takumi that it'll be lonely without him, but they all understand that he needs to move forward. Bonga mentions that a merchant named Paypek will soon be arriving, and that travel arrangements have already been made for Takumi to go with him. Deeply grateful, Takumi thanks them. Later, Takumi runs into Martha, who's carrying parts of a horned rabbit. Although the meat tastes great, she says it has to be discarded due to a lack of proper facilities. Takumi offers to purify it with his magic, surprising her with the revelation that he can use light magic. She urges him to keep it a secret. Those who can use light magic are rare, and even mid-level users can earn a fortune. Over the next few days, Takumi quietly helps develop the village using his powers, wanting to give back before he leaves. Eventually, Paypek arrives, surprised by the village's rapid development. Bonga introduces him to Takumi, and before they leave, he gives Bonga a healing potion, one of 100 he left at Takumi's home. Martha and the villagers gather to see him off. They present Takumi with a cloak made of Maple's silk. Touched, he promises to treasure it. Paypek notices Takumi's deep bond with the villagers. One of his guards, Heath, is moved to tears, while another, Real, teases him for acting like an old man. Paypek introduces them as the Lion Fang adventuring party, and Takumi realizes they're his escorts. The group asks Takumi about his luggage, and he mentions he has a pet spider. When they peek inside, Maple surprisingly warms up to their third member, Bogar, making the rest jealous. Amid the laughter, Paypek asks if Takumi has more potions for sale, but before he can respond, the carriage suddenly halts. They're ambushed by goblins. The Lion Fang members spring into action, excited to deal with the monsters. Takumi is terrified. This is his first real encounter with goblins. Paypek reassures him that it's a common danger for merchants. The party defeats the goblins, though Real notes it took longer than expected. 3 days later, they finally arrive in Bolton, a city in the Barkula Kingdom. Takumi is overwhelmed by how different it is from the village. He heads to the Adventurers Valkyries guild with the Lion Fang to report the completed escort mission. Takumi tells the receptionist he wants to join the Alchemists Guild, but she whispers that there's no official branch in the city. Most people just register with the Adventurers Guild and use the guild card as a general ID. It only remains valid if the holder completes at least one quest a month. Takumi registers both himself and Maple. The receptionist is shocked to see such a dangerous pet, but processes it anyway. Later, Takumi visits Paypek's headquarters to sell his potions. Paypek offers to buy everything for around 7 million yen. Takumi is thrilled, though Paypek admits he's underpaying a bit since Takumi is still unknown in the market. Suspicious but trusting his gut, Takumi decides to accept the deal. Paypek then recommends a rental house with a built-in workshop, perfect for an alchemist. Takumi is surprised when they reach the place. It's a mansion. He jokes that it must be haunted, but Thomas, Papek's assistant, assures him it's not. While exploring the city, Takumi smells a horrible stench. Thomas explains that nobles use ancient magical purifiers from dungeons to manage sewage, but commoners can't afford them. Occasionally, priests are hired to clean it, but mostly people just endure the smell. The next day, Takumi moves into his mansion and gets to work building a toilet. Using materials from Papek's company and his magic, he successfully purifies the waste system, leveling up both his alchemy and light magic in the process. Exhausted, he drinks a potion to recover. Just then, he hears a scream. Papek has been caught in Maple's web, but to everyone's surprise, Papek finds it cozy rather than threatening. Takumi still apologizes, and Papek shrugs it off. He's far more interested in the toilet, amazed by its cleanliness and functionality. He asks Takumi if he can use light magic. Remembering Martha's warning, Takumi begs him to keep it a secret. Papek agrees, under one condition. Takumi must make 100 more toilets. Overwhelmed, Takumi thinks of hiring help. Papek suggests getting a slave, as slave contracts are sealed by magic, ensuring secrecy. They also provide reliable household help and protection. Papek also explains that Takumi's affinity for light magic means he's chosen by the Church of Divine Light, the dominant religious power in the Holy Empire of Sidonia. But Takumi knows the church exploits light magic users, so they must keep his identity secret. Takumi is reluctant to use slaves, but he acknowledges the workload. Pick insists that getting a slave would be the best option for Takumi. But Takumi remains strongly opposed to slavery and declares that he will manage all the work on his own. However, his guild card suddenly begins to glow, and upon checking it, he discovers a message requiring him to complete a verification quest in order to maintain his adventurer status. Realizing he won't have the time to finish building the toilets on his own if he also has to complete this quest, he reluctantly agrees to purchase a slave. Pick brings Takumi to the Mulan Trading Company, explaining that they are known as the most ethical slave traders in the area. While Pick goes to negotiate with the owner to secure a good deal for Takumi, Pick introduces Takumi to Mulan, the owner of the slave trading company, informing her that Takumi is interested in purchasing a slave, although he notes that Takumi was quite hesitant about the idea. Curious, Mulan asks Takumi if there's a particular reason for his reluctance. Takumi explains that in his homeland, the practice of buying and selling people was abolished long ago, making it difficult for him to come to terms with it here. Mulan acknowledges his concerns, but reassures him that in this land, the rights and privileges of slaves are at least maintained to a certain degree. She explains that the owner is responsible for providing the slave with essentials such as food, clothing, and shelter, while the slave is expected to fulfill specific duties outlined in their contract. The contract also includes a clause that prevents either the master or the slave from causing lethal harm to the other. Takumi finds this arrangement reassuring, as it essentially turns the slave contract into something resembling a regular job with clearly defined rules. Mulan continues by describing the different types of slave contracts. Some people become slaves due to debt and are contracted until they earn enough to repay what they owe. Permanent contracts are typically assigned to criminals or war captives as an alternative to execution. However, many slaves are people who are illegally forced into slavery by bandits. Pick suggests that a war slave would be the best choice for Takumi, since they cannot leave their master without permission. Although Mulan can arrange for this, she asks why it's so important for the slave to be bound in such a way. Pick starts to explain Takumi's exceptional production skills and the need to protect his secrets, but Mulan insists on hearing the reasoning directly from Takumi. Takumi explains that as a producer, he wants to focus on his work, but managing quests from the Adventurers Guild makes that difficult. Living in a mansion, he also needs help with upkeep. Furthermore, due to certain unique skills he possesses, he needs assurance that his slave won't disclose any information about him. Lastly, because his quests involve harvesting ingredients and could be dangerous, he requires a slave who is also a skilled fighter to ensure their safety. Mulan quickly understands that Takumi doesn't have any bad intentions, but she firmly refuses to let him make a single slave handle both housework and combat. She's willing to do business with him only if he agrees to purchase 2 separate slaves for the roles. With that in mind, she mentions that she knows someone who would be perfect as a housekeeper and calls Maria into the room. Maria, who was forced into slavery as a child, has been trained extensively in reading, writing, mathematics, and general housekeeping, making her an excellent candidate for the job. Maria confidently states that she's capable of managing all the housework for a mansion on her own, which reassures Takumi. However, Maria notices that he seems lost in thought and asks if something is bothering him. Takumi tells her he's just a little confused, as he doesn't understand why no one has bought Maria yet, considering how cute and capable she is. Maria gets embarrassed by Takumi calling her cute, so he apologizes, thinking it might have been inappropriate to say. Maria calms down and tells Takumi that she can only do the housekeeping work outlined in the contract and nothing else. Takumi says he's fine with that since he only wants her to do housekeeping work, but Maria insists on making it very clear that she won't do anything else. Takumi doesn't understand why she's talking about it so much, since Mulan already explained how the contracts work, but then Maria blurts out that she can't sleep with Takumi. He feels flustered as well, but reassures Maria that his intentions are genuine. He only wants her as a housekeeper and nothing inappropriate. With that clarified, Takumi asks Maria if she's still willing to form a contract with him, to which she happily agrees. With the matter settled, Mulan announces that she'll begin drafting the contract for Maria. However, when it comes to a battle servant, Mulan explains that she doesn't currently have anyone who meets Takumi's criteria. Hearing this, Maria calls her out, claiming that Sophia is still around. Mulan doesn't appreciate being challenged and sharply tells Maria to return to her room and start packing her belongings. After Maria leaves, Takumi asks Mulan if what Maria said is true. Mulan confirms that there is indeed a battle slave in the building, but warns that Sophia might not be a good match for him due to her many issues. Mulan attempts to end the conversation, but Takumi, intrigued, requests to meet Sophia. Reluctantly, Mulan agrees and takes him to her room. When they arrive, Sophia is startled to see that the visitor is the boy she encountered in the courtyard earlier. Mulan explains Sophia's background, revealing that she was captured as a war slave during the conflict between the Kingdom of Triara and the Kingdom of Yugar, events that took place over 50 years ago. Takumi is shocked to discover that Sophia is over 50 years old, prompting Mulan to explain that the Kingdom of Yugar was an elf nation, and elves naturally have much longer lifespans. Mulan then details why Sophia has struggled to form a contract with anyone. She bears a noticeable scar on her ears, and both her right hand and left leg have limited mobility. These physical issues alone make her unsuitable for most seeking a battle slave, but on top of that, she has also lost her ability to use elemental magic, a defining trait of elves, indicating she might be cursed. Given all this, Mulan doubts that Sophia could be of any help to Takumi on his quests. Despite her concerns, Takumi insists on assessing the situation himself and requests some time alone with Sophia. Mulan hesitantly agrees and leaves the room. Once they are alone, Takumi gently holds Sophia's face and looks into her eyes. Though he's not fond of using appraisal on people without consent, he feels it's necessary to understand what he's dealing with. When he examines Sophia's status screen, he's stunned to see that her stats are incredibly high. While her injuries and curse do limit her abilities, Takumi realizes that if he can fix those issues, she would be an ideal battle companion. Soon after, Mulan returns to the room and asks if Takumi has made his decision. He confidently states that he wants to take Sophia. Surprised, Sophia reminds him of all her flaws, but Takumi assures her that he'll fix everything, so it won't be an issue. Impressed by his confidence, Mulan agrees to entrust Sophia to Takumi's care. A few minutes later, Mulan finalizes the terms of the contract, and the final step is to execute it. The three gather together as Mulan uses magic to bind them to the agreed terms. Once the process is complete, Maria and Sophia officially become Takumi's slaves. Maria expresses her gratitude to Takumi for choosing her and vows to work hard to meet his expectations, with Sophia echoing the sentiment. The trio eventually heads back to Takumi's house, and the moment he opens the door, Maple excitedly leaps out to greet him. Concerned for Takumi's safety, both Maria and Sophia immediately tense up, with Sophia preparing to attack. However, Takumi quickly stops her and explains that Maple is actually his pet killer spider. Though puzzled by the revelation, the two decide to accept it and act as if it's completely normal. A little while later, Takumi shows them to one of the empty rooms in the mansion. Sophia and Maria really like it, so Takumi tells them that Sophia can have this one, and Maria can take the room next door. Neither of them can believe that Takumi is willing to give them their own rooms, but since he isn't using the rooms anyway, he thinks it would be nice if someone got some use out of them at least. Additionally, there is also a large bath so he tells them that once they are done unpacking, they can use the bath whenever they like, and Maria is really excited about it. Later, while taking a bath together, Maria shares how pleased she is that Takumi chose to purchase Sophia as well. She admits she never believed Mulan would let Sophia go, as Mulan had spent the past 50 years refusing to sell her no matter how much was offered. For Mulan to sell Sophia to Takumi, she must have seen something trustworthy in him. Sophia agrees that Takumi seems kind, but remains a bit wary since they know so little about him. During the contract preparations, Sophia caught a glimpse of Takumi's file and noticed that much of his background information, such as his hometown and lineage, was left blank. This makes her suspect that he might be intentionally hiding something. After they are done with their bath, they head outside and are shocked to see that Takumi already prepared dinner for them. Maria is especially devastated, since household work is meant to be her job. So if Takumi handles everything himself, then she feels useless. Takumi explains that he was just trying to make Maria's first day on the job a little easier, but if it makes her feel better, he will let her handle the rest of the chores on her own. For now, he asks them to sit down so they can all have dinner together. Sophia is hesitant, since servants usually don't get to eat at the same table as their master. Takumi understands that she may think his behavior is strange for a slave owner, but he doesn't want her to get stuck on tradition. On the topic of tradition, Takumi mentions that he's not particularly fond of being called master all the time, and suggests that they call him by his name instead. Sophia, however, asks if this is a formal order. Takumi clarifies that he doesn't want to force her to call him by his name if it makes her uncomfortable. While Maria seems perfectly fine with addressing him by name, Sophia remains a bit reluctant. The next day, Takumi heads to Pick's trading company to pick up a package he ordered. Pick says he did his best to wrap it up securely, but still wants Takumi to be careful when carrying it home. On his way back, Takumi notices a church nearby, so he heads inside and kneels down to pray to Nolan. He thanks her for all the skills she gave him, since they've really helped him, but there's something he's been meaning to ask. In the time he has spent in this world, he learned that the Holy Empire of Cydonia controls the religious doctrine here, so he doesn't understand why Nolan has such a problem with them. At that moment, Takumi hears Nolan's voice and notices her standing before him, causing him to momentarily panic. Nolan calmly explains that she heard him praying to her and brought him here for a little chat. Addressing his earlier question, she reveals that she doesn't favor Cydonia because they don't follow her will. She explains that this world has two main religions, the Church of Creation and the Church of Divine Light. The Church of Creation has faithfully worshipped her since its inception, while the Church of Divine Light operates without regard for her guidance, doing as it pleases. The Cydonia Empire even launched multiple crusades to forcibly spread their religion. Throughout all this, Nolan chose to remain uninvolved, as she had no interest in meddling with humanity's petty disputes. Takumi points out that that was a dumb move, since the only reason Cydonia was able to activate the summoning spell that brought him here was because Nolan didn't intervene until it was too late. And yes, it sounds bad when he puts it like that, but she gave him all her blessings to make up for her mistake. However, there is something she needs to tell him. Most of her blessings will remain with him forever, but there is one that will fade away: the unusually great luck he has been having recently. She basically gave him a beginner's tutorial by allowing him to meet such nice and helpful people, but soon he will end up meeting people with malicious intentions. From now on, the results of his actions will completely depend on him. Shortly after, Takumi arrives home, only to trip over Maple, who eagerly greets him. Sophia and Maria rush to check on him, but when Sophia tries to take the package he brought, he quickly stores it in his item box to keep her from touching it. He then informs them that he'll be working in his workshop for a while and requests not to be disturbed. Sophia, noticing the package was wrapped in high-grade magical paper, grows suspicious, suspecting it might contain something dangerous. Unable to ignore her doubts, she follows Takumi to his workshop. There, she is shocked to witness him dipping a knife in poison, deliberately cutting himself, and immediately healing the wound. His actions seem bizarre and unsettling. When Takumi casually mentions Maria's name during his experiment, Sophia's suspicions intensify, leading her to believe he has sinister intentions toward Maria. She tries to attack him, but overwhelmed by exhaustion, she collapses on top of him instead. Takumi checks her status to figure out what's wrong and discovers that she is suffering from extreme exhaustion, likely due to her curse. A wound like this normally wouldn't be that difficult to heal, but because of the curse, it takes a lot of effort. Takumi finally manages to heal her hand, and in the process, his light magic levels up, He later carries Sophia up to her room, and since his light magic leveled up, he now has enough power to dispel her curse. So he pours all his magic into it and eventually is able to fully heal Sophia, as well as lift her curse. She's still unconscious due to exhaustion, but she should be fine once she gets a little rest. A couple of hours later, Sophia wakes up, and upon seeing Maria, urgently warns her to run, convinced that Takumi is completely insane based on what she witnessed earlier. Maria, however, has no idea what Sophia is referring to, but she's more certain than ever that Takumi is a genuinely good person. To prove her point, Maria holds up a mirror for Sophia, revealing the changes Takumi has made. Sophia is stunned to realize that her body has been healed and her magic restored. Determined to understand, Sophia steps outside to confront Takumi, who confirms that he successfully removed her curse. He explains that it required enduring significant pain and effort to level up his skill, but he reassures her that she doesn't need to feel burdened by it. After all, he had promised to heal her. Sophia comes to the realization that she had entirely misjudged Takumi. Overwhelmed with gratitude for the kindness he has shown her, she kneels before him and solemnly vows to serve him faithfully for the rest of her life.
The story begins quietly, with a young man named Akira sitting in his classroom. He's disappointed to see he's not the hero. The priest smiles and reassures him that even without the hero title, he still has the potential to become a powerful soldier. One by one, P discovers that she's a Dispel mage, and her friend Tomoya learns that he's been assigned the night class. Another student named Shori finds out that she's a healer, much to everyone's delight, but mumbling that he's a failure. Sensing something strange, Akira orders a Dispel mage to check him.